Hey, Chris Manning here from Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. My co-partner Evan Dammerl is with me today. We're going to talk about Cavs-Grizzlies, which the Cavs lost, but was still kind of a fun game. I'll give you a little more insight into that season opener. We're going to talk about Friday's Cavs-Hornets game, the home opener for Cleveland, and then Saturday's Cavs-Hawks game where Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks come to town. That's all coming up today on Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And today's podcast is also brought to you by our friends at McDonald's. Proudly serving communities since 1965, McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, if you don't know, first time listening, watching us on YouTube, etc., I'm Chris Manning, editor at Fear the Sword, write at places like Cleveland Magazine, Dime, Forbes, etc. My co-partner in crime here is Evan Dammerl. He helps run the ship with me at Fear the Sword, and he covers all of Cleveland sports at Facebook Bulletins right down Euclid. Find him on
correct.
Twitter am not Evan. Evan, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's middle of the day on a Thursday. The Browns play the Broncos soon. For those who may not know, I am a Broncos fan and a Browns fan, and I worked late last night because of the Cavs game, so I ran a couple errands this morning where my Broncos pull over and got harassed by a giant Eagle worker who got in my face and said, "You know what? The Denver Broncos suck." And I'm like, they do. They do. But this is the clean sweater on top of my laundry basket. I didn't feel like getting dressed up because I got my hair cut. I told the guy who cut my hair, it's Cavs, the home opener tomorrow. He recognized me from the show, actually. And he's like, "Oh, I got to give you the nicest fade possible." And he's like, "Make sure you're looking fresh for the cameras." I was like, "Thank you." So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fresh. I'm feeling fine. Look good. Feel good. Record well. I don't want to say record good, but how are you, man?
I'm doing. I got a nice sparkling beverage I'm drinking. No free ad,
Beverage.
beverage. But we're gonna dive into more of this game. Evan, when you consider just what we watched, we talked about Evan Mobley a bunch. We talked about Okoro. We talked about the starting lineup change. We talked about a bunch of different stuff. I guess, is there anything else from that game that we should kind of hit on as we're kind of before we look ahead to the weekend, the freaking weekend?
Chetty Osman was really, really good in this game. And like we talked about this a little bit on yesterday's show soon after the game concluded. Like there's a lot of impressive individual performances. It was actually my stat of the night. It was the fact Cavs had 7 of their 9 players score in double digits, with Isaac Okoro and Kevin Love not being those two that did it. And Jetty, we kind of didn't have enough time to talk about because there's just so much to discuss for a season opener, which, part of his excitement, but Jetty was really impressive. Peaks and valleys player. Maybe this is going to be one of 2 or 3 games in this peak, and then he's going to come crashing back down to earth, but defensively still a mess, but 3 of 3 from 3. Ricky Rubio is making a concerted effort to get him involved, part of that team high assist total since 2016, which is still a stat that blows my mind. But no, Jetty looked really sharp in this game, and I think the sense of urgency to say, like, okay, if you want, or like the sense of urgency to say that the backup wing spot is kind of up for grabs. I mean, Isaac Okoro got benched for Lauri Markkanen, so it's really up for grabs. So like wing depth is a paramount need for the Cavs, and Okoro is obviously going to be penciled in as one of those wings. And I think Jetty is making the most of the situation to make sure that Lamar Stevens and Dylan Windler's hurt, and it's just unfortunate because Dylan's goal is to play 82 games this year, and it's already one goal that's not going to happen. So Jetty could be easily penciled in as one of the reserve wings if he keeps this up. And this is the kind of Jetty Osman the Cavs need, where sure, he's a mess defensively, but he's bringing you some positives in other ways in terms of shooting, in terms of spacing. I mean, he had 1 assist, so that's encouraging as well. So there's a little bit of good with Jetty. I mean, he had the second worst plus minus out of everybody on the floor for the Cavs, which, hard to gauge when it's just such a back and forth non-defensive game. But Jetty was pretty encouraging. Like, I hope he keeps it up against Charlotte.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. Just because I think it's as good as we've seen him play. Very decisive on the offensive end of the floor. As you noted, I don't think he was particularly good on defense, but that's not anything new. I had someone ask me, I was texting with some
He's a
folks about
mess
that game.
defensively,
His
just
just
straight
the
up.
way he his upper body just like goes up and down. It's quite all over the place. But I had someone ask me like,
Well, you
you
smartly
know,
pointed out, like, watch Jetty's feet
mhm.
during not really fundamentally sound.
No. I think the other thing I want to hit on is Evan Mobley played 38 minutes. That's a lot of minutes for Evan Mobley, considering he's a rookie, considering he's just getting into the league, and it's the most minutes of anyone in this game, and it was by far the most of anyone with the Cavs. I thought the minutes distribution overall was just interesting. Like, so here, run this down. Markkanen played 31, Garland played 32. No one else played above 30. So Mobley was at 38, obviously, as we said. So those three guys were 30 and above. Sexton only played 29. Allen played 29. Love 17. Osman 17. Okoro, who led the team in minutes last year, 21. And Rubio played 25. I don't know if I love Evan Mobley playing 38 minutes, fresh out the gate there. I think that's a lot of minutes for him right off the bat. I also think I thought Isaac I'm Isaac pilled. But I think Isaac was doing enough to impact the game where I'm like,
I
should
felt the same
he be
about
playing 10
Jarrett.
fewer minutes than Markkanen? Yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
Jarrett too. I mean, Jarrett
had the hot hand
played
the
really
entire
well.
night. He was 11-11 from the floor. I remember Darius Garland corrected Kelsey Russo during media availability, saying Jarrett. She's like Jarrett had a pretty good game. He's just pretty good. He had a great game. I questioned some of JB's rotation decisions last night because Sexton playing less than 30 raised an eyebrow for sure. I think, I don't know, maybe the Cavs, Sexton, is it bold of me to say he was kind of a non-impact in this game? He had 17 points, but then 1 assist, 1 rebound. But other than that, it's just he scored 17 points. It was an empty calorie night for Colin Sexton. He didn't do enough for me to say okay, he was a difference maker in this game. He was yes, he made that big 3 to start the second half. He had moments that were big, but he wasn't carrying the team on his back. And that made me raise an eyebrow because you and I know, and it's become crystal clear that the Cavs are phasing towards this team becoming more Darius Garland's in the Sex-Land tandem, so it's more land than it is sex right now in Cleveland. So I'm just intrigued by that. I wonder what JV's trying to do, because the Jarrett Allen thing was interesting to me because Jarrett was red hot at one point. I think he hit 3 straight buckets, and then JV pulled him for Lauri Markkanen, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Why are we putting a guy who's just wildly just a non-factor on both ends of the floor tonight? I mean, yes, he finished the night with 10 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. He would have been the third Cavalier to have a double-double, which is weird to think. Same ditto for Mobley as well if he had an extra board, but I question some of the rotation decisions. I don't know. Justin Rowan pointed out that maybe the plus minus isn't so bad with Markkanen on the floor, but again, this is one game. But I'm intrigued to see how long this Lauri Markkanen honeymoon period lasts, and maybe we start seeing Isaac Okoro leading the team in minutes or second most minutes, because Evan Mobley really might get a lot of burn just to kind of get him acclimated to the NBA game. I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have for JB, and he gives answers without giving them. He doesn't really like to reveal his hand in terms of rotations, lineups, things like that. So I don't think you'd ever get a direct response unless it's completely off the record with him. The rotation stuff really made me raise an eyebrow when I started breaking down the numbers and looking at it after the game, and just started noticing, I'm like, well, where the hell's Jarrett Allen? And then I look down and I'm like, oh, and I start counting the players on the floor and reading off the numbers in my head. I'm just like, oh, he's not on the floor, even though he's been a high impact player this entire game. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll see how this irons out. I think there's some possibility it shifts around a little bit as we kind of go on here. Maybe I don't know. I as far as Sexton goes, I do think you're not wrong that he wasn't the one carrying the back, but I do think there was that shot he hit was just big. I mean, that was just a really the shot to bring it to one was just massive. I think some of the cutting he did, I think really the biggest problem for him was just the defense. I thought him defending Morant was just often really struggle. The intensity was kind of there, but it was very
the intensity was there, but he would foul Morant when he was so intense.
Yeah,
John Morant was taking turns bullying either Colin or Lauri on when the Cavs were on defense. It got messy early, and that's how Morant just kind of found a comfort level, and he built momentum off that. Because he almost dropped 40 points on the Cavs last night.
Yeah, Morant was freaking incredible, but
he's otherworldly.
I want to see how this kind of all develops. I think I want to like Sexton's intensity on the defensive end was like a positive sign, but like it wasn't him getting to a place where like he's being a actual good defender just wasn't quite there and all of that. But Evan, we got to take a break,
As my
and
dryer
you're
just
gonna.
finished, my apologies, everyone listening.
It's all right. Tell everyone about a friend at McDonald's.
This episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by McDonald's, who have been proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect. It's a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and an endless supply of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's the place where you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. Also, I mean, you guys might have listened before, but I live next to a McDonald's in college. If you are a student at the University of Akron, I lived on Wheeler Street, and you know exactly where the McDonald's is relative to that, and literally less than 500 feet. And this is back when they did 24-hour breakfast, and it was just a game changer for me. So, God bless you, McDonald's. Love you so much. So, if you're hungry like me, like I'm pretty hungry right now, I might have to go make a McRun after this. Let's head to our local McDonald's, refill, and reconnect. Did somebody say a Locked On Cavs watch party? I think that would be phenomenal. We can have chicken McNuggets, we can have a Big Mac or two, slosh it down with some exclusive McDonald's Coke, and you know what? We'll all be saying, "Ba-ba-ba-ba-bum." I'm loving it because Chris Manning's paying.
Debatable on that last part. All right, we're back. Let's talk about Cavs Hornets Friday night, the home opener. Evan, what are you looking forward to in Cavs Hornets? Like, what to you stands out as something that you would like to kind of see and understand as far as this game goes?
Well, what I'm looking forward to most is seeing good friend of the pod, Justin Rowan, because he finally crossed the border after escaping from the frozen hellscape that is Winnipeg, Canada, after the conservatives in America mishandled COVID and prevented him from coming over sooner. So we can see Justin. I can see him for the second time. You can see him for the first time. But I'm also looking forward just to seeing the Hornets. Like, phenomenal branding. The Cavs will rock in their wines for the second night in a row. And hey, they're actually playing a team that's wearing a tealish color against because the Hornets are rocking their teal colors. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to see LaMelo Ball. I'm interested to see if JB sticks with the Tower City lineup again for this one. I think deploying Isaac Okoro would be more beneficial because if you put Okoro on LaMelo Ball early instead of like trying to put Colin Sexton on him, LaMelo Ball is a player that if he builds a lot of momentum, a lot like, I mean, this is a no dip for most players, but especially LaMelo Ball, if he builds a lot of momentum and he gets comfortable early, like this could be the Cavs' ultimate downfall. There may be, scary Terry though, so the Cavs don't really have to worry about him going off for like a 50 burger because Terry Rozier loves to just murder his hometown Cavs. I'm just looking forward to a lot of things, interested in a lot of things. Chris, you made a good point about this. It's been in my craw for a while. I think rebounding wise, that's interesting too, because someone in our Discord server pointed this out, but Markkanen, Allen, and Mobley combined for 22 rebounds, and they're out rebounded by Steven Adams. I mean, like the Cavs as a whole, they started 3 7-footers. They were out rebounded 53-36, and like, yeah, Memphis has a lot of size, so I wonder maybe if Charlotte, with their lack of size, kind of causes things to balance out a little bit, because Larry Markkanen, again, my frustration is he doesn't use his God-given ability sometimes. And like, he's 7 feet tall. He should be able to be snatching boards left and right. Ditto for Jared Allen, but I don't know what's up with that because he only had 4 boards against the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I will be curious to see sort of how they look defensive. I mean, on the rebounding end, because if you just think about a way you can have an advantage against a team that doesn't really that it has a big need at center and really struggled against a team that obviously, the Turner Sabonis pairing is much more developed and better right now than the Mobley Allen pairing is. But like they really struggled with that duo in a barn burner of an opening night game. They came back from a lot. They won. LaMelo looked like Vincent Adultman, but like in that game, the Pacers led by 15 from Sabonis, and 7 from Turner and 8 from Torrey Craig, and it looks like 5 from Duarte, had 51 rebounds to a whopping 40. So it's only a 5-point advantage or 5 rebound advantage for Indiana in that game. So it's not like massive. So maybe like they're a better rebounding team than I sort of thought, but there just isn't bigs there. And like here's their starting lineup. LaMelo, Gordon Hayward, Bridges, Oubre, Plumlee. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I I think if the let's just assume the Cavs roll that same starting five, and there's not an indication now that they're going to change it after one game or it's going to be a game by game thing. I think that tends to not be like a great way to build continuity and kind of get settled. It doesn't strike me as like a JB thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a weird like so obviously I think Colin no one's really gonna be in a great position of that unit to guard LaMelo. So Lowry's defending like one of Hayward and Bridges, and then or is like Mobley defending Bridges? I would wonder
It's
like how
tough.
your the cross matching here could be weird because like who's defending Hayward? Like there's not exactly like great answers for Cleveland defensively here without Okoro at the 3 and with Lowry in there. But like I would guess he would be like Allen defends Plumlee, Sexton defends Ball, Mobley defends Bridges, and that leaves me Markkanen for I guess like
Probably
maybe you try to
Washington.
maybe you try to the starting five would be Ball, Oubre, Plumlee, Bridges, Hayward. So PJ Washington, McDaniels, Martin, Ish Smith come off the bench with no Rozier. If Rozier plays and starts, like this is a little bit more direct. You just have the small guard, the small guard, whatever. But like
I wonder if maybe
maybe
Charlotte tries to counteract size by subbing out Oubre for Washington or they don't start
Oubre's
Plumlee and they start Washington instead. I don't know. I think PJ Washington can play power forward center for the Hornets, and I know
he does. Yeah, that's what he does. That's what he does. And Oubre's kind of the same. Yeah. I just wonder if they roll out the same starting five, like how the Cavs match up will be kind of interesting because it's not like a lot of great choices there, but it's interesting if you think about like where the Cavs want to get this season. I think Atlanta's like probably a top 3-4 team in the health permitting. Charlotte, if you
third best.
Okay. So if you look at like the 538 model, which, isn't a perfect model, like no model is end all be all, etc. The Hornets, in terms of that hierarchy, are the next team above the Cavs in terms of playoff odds. In terms of the 538 ranking, they're a team that I would have, in that range above the Cavs coming into the year to see if the Cavs are going to be a team that can get into that play-in playoff hunt. They're certainly, the Cavs ahead of Detroit, ahead of Orlando, but can they surpass Charlotte? Can they surpass like Toronto, Chicago, etc.? This is a game where it's early, obviously, and the Cavs will, in theory, develop and get better over the course of the season. But we might get an idea of like how these teams sort of stack up early, and that's at least kind of fun. And again, the Cavs are heading into like a very brutal road trip like next week, so this is kind of like an early season, like okay, let's see what we got here kind of game.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm intrigued to see, how they match up the Hornets because I think the Hornets are a sneaky playing option for me. Like, I'm really high on their upside. Like, I was kind of out on Borrego as a coach, but then LaMelo Ball just kind of made things easier for them. And Terry Rozier somehow is working for them. They won the Kemba Walker trade big time because it didn't work out in Boston for Kemba. And like Gordon Hayward just kind of showing that he still has it is also a revelation too. Like I like the pieces the Hornets have assembled. I think they are 2 steps ahead of the Cavs because they have an impressive collection of individual talent, but they figured out how to make it all work and gel together. And I think LaMelo Ball is the one, like he's the guy who brought it all together for them. It also helps that he plays point guard, which is one of the most important positions in the league. Obviously, no dip, but yeah, man, it's gonna be a tone setter for the Cavs. I think this is an early palette test of maybe do the Cavs have the mettle to hang with these teams that they could be kind of battling with towards the end of the season for that playing spot if they're actually serious about being a playoff threat. And then they head out west after they play Atlanta, which we'll talk about in the final segment. But I think just rebounding, like that's the big thing. Like the Cavs really want to have a chance against the Hornets. Like they need to impose their will in terms of size on them as quickly as possible because the Hornets don't possess the size that can battle with Cleveland. And if JB Bickerstaff is hell-bent and determined to play bigger than every team instead of, bucking the trend of what conventional basketball tells you to play these days, because I think the Warriors are kind of a lazy example. I just think playing small and faster is just a smart way to go about things nowadays. But
well, I think the size thing is via like unicorns, and that's a bad term, but it's like the size advantage comes from Anthony Davis. It comes from Giannis. It comes from like having
a
like
healthy
that kind of big
for a hot second.
Yeah, but like Mobley might be that guy, but he's not
But
there yet. So
yeah,
it's
we
it's
need a lot
yeah.
of time and patience before we start saying that.
Friend of the program, Jonathan Charks. I'll put it in the show notes as a further reading. Shots to Charks, but he wrote a really good piece about this week for The Ringer that I will put in the show notes. You can check that out, and that to me, it's one of the best pieces I've read encapsulating the use of size in the modern NBA, and that's not a surprise because Charks is absolutely great. But Evan, we're going to take one more break. We're going to come back, as Evan noted. We're going to preview Cavs-Hawks, dive into some of that game. But first, I got to tell everyone about our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar has so many great flavors. Right now, they have blueberry muffin and cookie dough chunk back in stock. So you're going to get those before they're gone, and you don't know when they're going to come back. They're going to go back
You
into
guys might
that
want to
Built
hurry. I
Bar
bought up a ton of blueberry
treasure trove.
muffin.
Yeah, they're great.
So good.
They also have coconut, cherry barcia, mint brownie, and a whole bunch of other flavors. If you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mix box where you get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. Remember, every Built Bar is 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbohydrates. So order today. Go get that blueberry muffin, that cookie dough chunk, or whatever it is you like, and check out the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team and NASCAR. So go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Again, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, Evan, last segment, just a note on Atlanta and from a schedule perspective. They're as we're recording this, they have not played their first game of the regular season yet. They're one of the 4 teams, excuse me. Dallas and Atlanta are 2, and they're playing each other on Thursday. The Miami Heat, who play the Bucks on Thursday, and then the Clippers, who play the Warriors in the late game on Thursday. They have not played a game yet. So they're then off Friday when the Cavs are playing, and then these 2 teams play on Saturday. So if you're looking at this from a schedule breakdown, the Cavs are going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball there. They're going to be coming in at a rest disadvantage of already having played 2 games when Atlanta played 1, the lack of a day off, etc. That doesn't excuse everything. Atlanta's definitely a better team, kind of on paper and stuff. Please check out Locked on Hawks. Brad Rowland is the man, and he absolutely is always just doing a bunch of crazy good work. So go check out that pod if you want some info ahead of this game. But Evan, I think this is another game where I just want to see how the Cavs approach it. I think hopefully, we didn't really talk about this in the last segment. I would like to see how much we see, Dylan Windler, Dean Wade as potential rotation options. Once they kind of get everyone healthy, I tend to think that, yeah. Let's see. We don't really know if Kevin Love might rest Saturday.
Yeah, we're on the same.
Yeah, and does that mean
We
they
really
go
are a
smaller?
good
Do they play
podcast,
Dean
Tandem. We're on
Wade?
the same
There are questions.
wavelength.
Yeah, awesome. That to me is where I want to start, and then I want to see how they defend Atlanta. Atlanta's a team that has a lot of dynamic wings. We'll see kind of how they roll stuff out. They're kind of look at DeAndre. They have DeAndre Hunter back this year. They have Kevin Huerter. They have they're without Onyeka Okongwu right now, but they have good center play still, not just in Clint Capella, but in Gorgui Dieng. This is a good team that has Trae Young, and the Cavs will have to deal with him first and foremost and come up with an attack plan for him. And again, particularly, I don't mean to keep hammering this, but it's like last year, the Cavs planned for this, and it was their plan with John Morant that worked, was Isaac Okoro, go hound that guard. And if he's not starting, what is their plan defensively to kind of attack Trae? That's interesting.
Yeah, let's play this game again, honestly, because let's just assume the starting 5 for the Hawks is Trae Young, Bogdan Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Clint Capella. I think you put Allen on Capella, Mobley on Collins, maybe you put Markkanen on Hunter, and then you put Sexton on Young, and you put Garland on Bogdanovic. This is another less than ideal, suboptimal team to be playing the Cavs with their all big lineup, because Trae's gonna hunt Lauri Markkanen much like John Morant did, and it just makes more sense conventionally just to deploy Isaac Okoro, like you said, and just say, go ahead, we want you to hunt this guard, we want you to kind of shut their water off, make their life hell so it just doesn't get easy. And Trae doesn't have the benefit of hunting for fouls as much anymore because the NBA officiating changes, but
he's still so good
tiny.
that he's gonna get his. That rule affects him as much as anyone. That rule changed, but
no, I know, but that means Isaac doesn't have to be as hesitant to play defense on him because Trae's not gonna try and bait him into pump. But Isaac's also notoriously bad at biting on pump fakes too, so a little bit of a trade off there too. But it's an interesting thing. I'm interested about that. You read my mind exactly, because I don't know if Kevin Love will play on the second of back-to-backs. JB has done it in the past, but maybe they won't do it so much now. if Dean Wade is still unavailable due to his ankle, if Dylan Wilder's unavailable due to his hip, do we see Lamar Stevens get those like ninth man minutes and you bump Jetty further up the rotation a little bit? Or do you see, we're really reaching here. Do you see maybe some Kevin Pangos minutes and the Cavs go super small? Or do you see Taco Fall somehow get some burn? Like there's a lot of, or maybe even Ed Davis. Maybe Ed Davis gets some burn, even though he's fully admitted he does not expect to play for the Cavs at any point. But the injury report should be released around 5:30 after we're done recording this. So at least we'll know who's available for the Hornets game, and maybe then we'll have a clearer indicator. But JB said on Monday he hopes Dean is available for the home opener. He doubts Dylan Windler will be, so maybe Dean Wade will just get way more burn against Atlanta if Kevin Love is unavailable. Like there's a lot of variables and factors here, and I want to shift back again. The Hawks, unlike the Hornets, have a lot of size, and Gorgie Dieng, like he was overpaid during his time, but I think he's a hell of a good rotational center. And I really like that addition for the Hawks because, like, yeah, Okongu's probably going to bump him out of the rotation when he's healthy again. But like for now, like they could not be in a better situation in terms of depth. Like this Hawks team's super intriguing. Like Cam Reddish too. Like Cam Reddish is probably, I don't know, contract year Cam Reddish has been an experience because the Cavs played him in the preseason, but I'm interested to see what happens there too. And that's another good example too, where like you talk about how JB would deploy Isaac. Like JB deployed Isaac in the preseason and put him on DeLon Wright, who was playing instead of Trae Young. And like Isaac was making DeLon Wright's life hell on most occasions because Isaac's just a freak in nature defensively. And I do wonder if the big lineup is a permanent thing because Fedor did say that this starting spot is Lauri Markkanen to lose, and I wonder how many games Lauri needs to have where he's kind of getting hunted on defense for him to lose the starting spot. But just conventional wisdom still tells me that Isaac Okoro, like despite his offensive lumps, like you can kind of cover up those deficiencies if you start him and just deploy him as the defensive stopgap on the team's best like guard or perimeter player. It's just where I'm at.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, I think, to kind of see how this all goes or how the Cavs look, how they adjust. I mean, I think there's still some adjustments. I still think we are seeing some, changes and things kind of evolve as they go. I think it's just so early in the year and everything that I just kind of want to see how ultimately the Cavs handle it and how they adjust and what tweaks he decides to make. Because there's inevitably are going to be tweaks, and it could involve it could involve Lowry. It could involve. I mean, Lowry is obviously just kind of the obvious one here, but like that, like how they adjust and maybe how do your rotations change and things like that, I think are just going to be really interesting. And I want to see how that ultimately just kind of goes. It's just one of the fun parts of the early season, aside from getting basketball back, aside from seeing Evan Mobley do Evan Mobley stuff. Like that to me is one of the really fun things as we're kind of getting the year started. But Evan, I'm going to wrap up on one note on Ben Simmons. You obviously probably saw the reports that he came to Philadelphia and didn't participate in scheduled practice, saying he has a back issue, some back tightness. Doesn't seem like he's going to play after this. Is after he was kicked out of practice by Doc Rivers the other day and suspended for a game. Any further? Just do you have any take on if this changes anything in terms of him being available and the Cavs obviously being a team that have been interested?
Well, if he has back problems, I know the number 2 hospital in the nation is located in Cleveland, Ohio. That could really help him with that. And I think playing with his good friend, I mean, I'll post the picture again, folks. I wish I had it on hand, but there's a picture of him posting up to his Garland. Look how happy Ben Simmons is. And hey, maybe I'm going to feed into the Cavs Twitter conspiracy theories. Maybe the Cavs didn't extend Colin Sexton so they can package him in a trade for Ben Simmons. Who knows? But it's a talent play. I still think if the Cavs are somehow able to swing for Ben Simmons, they go for it. But I still think there's more attractive offers out there. But respect to Daryl Morey for kind of being firm on not wanting to settle for anything. But I think this is going to get uglier before it gets prettier for them. And I think he's going to end up settling for something. The Joel Embiid comments were pretty damning. He said, I don't care about that man. Like, full stop. He's like, I don't care about Ben Simmons. And it's just clear the Sixers are ready to move on, like the team at least. The organization is just kind of figuring things out. So fascinated. I think if he comes to Cleveland, I wonder if he'll play a good company guy. I think Rich having such a good relationship with the Cavs certainly helps smooth things over a little bit. But yeah, man, if he's having back problems, the Cleveland Clinic can help take care of those, no problem.
Yeah, all just a lot going on there. But anyway, that's going to be it for today's Locked On Cavs. Thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Now, why don't you go make your second listen? Locked On Fantasy Basketball from our friend Josh is hosting the #1 daily fantasy basketball podcast, and you can listen to that wherever you're listening to Locked On Cavs right now, and you can watch it on YouTube as well. Thanks again, everyone, tuning in. We'll be back on Monday, recapping the weekend games and previewing what is to come next week, and talking about any other shenanigans that happened over the weekend with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Until next time, I'm Chris. He's Evan. We'll talk to you then.